Hi and welcome to another episode of Straight Out of Camera, proudly sponsored by Fujifilm South Africa. Joining me live in studio today is Managing Director of TechSmart.co.za, Mike Hubert. Mike, how are you doing, sir?
Esli, how are you?
I'm very well, and live from Cape Town, commercial photographer Leon Wissers. How's it, Leon?
Hello guys, it's Lekker morning.
Mike, glamour photography, how has it changed throughout the ages?
You know, if you look at where these types of shoots started in fashion photography all those years ago, obviously there was a little bit of a progression to the raunchy side of things. You think about the Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition, that was always a fan favorite.
My favorite in high school.
And now, of course, you know, things has changed with the internet. Definitely, I won't say a surge in certain types of photography, but perhaps more photographers looking towards glamour photography to kind of build a name and reputation out there. I'm not sure. What's your perception of that?
I must be honest with you. I see a lot of Facebook adverts for artistic nude photographers looking for models or boudoir photographers that's willing to do it for free just to share the images. But what I want to know is, how do you keep that safe?
Well, hopefully our guest for today, Steve Casting, will be able to shed some light on that. He's been in the glamour industry for a number of years, and hopefully he'll have a couple of tips for not just the photographers, obviously for the models too. I think, yes, indeed, you know, you don't always, I mean, if photographers just request, you know, come for a nude shoot, that's a little bit strange.
But it happens.
Yeah, it happens for sure. And, you know, I don't know. It's a strange situation, especially in the times we're in right now. There are certain photographers being accused of being sexual predators, perhaps. So yeah, I think it's interesting times. I think there's definitely a way to stay safe in the industry, and hopefully Steve will be able to tell us a little bit more.
Talking about Steve, he's been pushing quite hard on social media, his one-on-one mentorship programs. What do you think the benefit would be for someone to rather go through a mentorship program of whoever the photographer is based on the genre that he's shooting, rather than getting into a tertiary institution?
Well, I haven't experienced Steve's one-on-one myself, but what I can think about is the fact that, you know, for many photographers, they find a way into the professional scene by being assistant to a professional. And in this case, if you're going one-on-one with Steve, perhaps that's the same type of experience that you get. I mean, it's very, one-on-one is very, very interesting, because you can ask all your questions. The attention is only on you as the student or the client. And well, I can only see benefits to that, to be honest. It might be a little bit expensive, I'm quite sure.
Yeah.
But yes, you're definitely getting some more exposure.
You think that you could be able to sort of ace that sort of specific genre quicker than what you would do over a 3-year period?
Well, I mean, that's an interesting question, because you also have to ask yourself, how much can you learn from the internet these days? Meaning that if you were to condense your 3-year degree into, say, for example, 1 year just going out full on, checking out YouTube tutorials and perhaps speaking to professionals. You've talked about this in the past on this podcast. How much value is there in going to the 3-year technical route as, for example, just gaining experience one-on-one?
Follow us on SOC_live, where we will have images of the photographer mentioned.
brandlive.co.za.
Have you ever thought about the power of social media? Social media has the power to make your business grow. Grow! Yeah! Why don't you let us manage your social media? Because our business is to see your business grow. Visit us at www.bstownmedia.co.za.
Our guest for today is Steve Casting. Steve is heavily involved in the media, having served as an art director and owning a casting agency and a production company. For his photography, Steve is perhaps best known for his glamour work, but has now moved on to specialist portraiture. He has also started a photography academy that focuses on one-on-one mentorship. Steve, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you, Mike.
Tell me a little bit, when it comes to your type of portraiture, how much is technical knowledge and how much is kind of like creative juices?
You know, I think in this industry, the technical can be the creative's biggest downfall, but we do need to follow a set of rules. There needs to be a bit of guidelines, and then from there, the artistic license plays. So for me, I'm a creative, I'm a non-technical photographer, but like I said, I follow certain rules. So I would say at least 30-40% is technical, but that 60% of creative is massive.
Oh.
Give us a little bit of brief history on how you got into photography, Steve.
Yeah, you know, I've always owned a casting agency, and I was approached by a men's magazine in 2011. And from there, my photography started growing from the production side, where I would employ a lot of photographers to handle the pictorials in this magazine. And I found, my background also being in art direction, I found there was a conflict, look, we used great photographers, but they just couldn't see my vision. And eventually I said, well, how difficult can it be? I've already produced this. It's just about placing some lights and implementing a bit of art direction. And I picked up the camera, and from there, it says it all.
Yeah, I quite like the idea that you say that you are maximum 40% technical, because I think a lot of people get lost in the technical stuff and forget that what makes a compelling image is in fact the creative part of it. How do you transition out of like the technical space, especially when you teach? I find that very interesting. So people want to know technical things. How do you teach the balance of those?
You know, it's a good question, because it's so difficult to articulate a creative vision. So I'm not going to make the comment and say you've either got it or you don't, but there are a lot of people wanting to go into this world of photography that just don't have that creative flair. You know, a typical example is one of my base modules is just getting a consistency and continuity in light and composition. And this is quite an easy one. I visually show the photographer how to compose, where to cut off, let's say it's a 3/4 portrait, and how to frame up, and they just don't get it. And it then takes me hours to be able to articulate this and teach this. However, the same photographer, when we talk about inverse square rules of light and we talk about the technical sides of large apertures in lenses, he just gets it. Okay.
Talk to us about your starting off point. I mean, you obviously shoot a lot of artificial light in your images. Did you start off as a natural light photographer and progressed into that, or did you just go bang, let's go and shoot with flash?
Yes, I actually did straight away, immediately. You know, I always owned cameras, and it was always taking pictures of my lighties when they were small, and there was obviously natural light. But one of my big influences with this men's magazine was a photographer called Neil Probert from Hot Lens, and he pioneered the way with gels, and he's a brilliant strobist. So I actually contracted Neil for a lot of these publication shoots, and I just loved the way he threw light around. And he also wasn't very technical. He says, let's see, we're just looking to expose the model correctly and fill up different areas in the ambient. Boom. So I went straight into flash photography. I love it.
So, quick couple of hot tips for people that want to get into strobist photography. What would be a typical setup?
Typical setup, I can tell you, I'm mainly focused on think for your pocket. Okay, so single strobe and understanding what's happening in the background. So a hot tip is location, 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 and cost your subject correctly. Now, I know a lot of people will tell me, yes, but we don't have a choice with regards to who comes onto our set, if it's a family shoot or a portfolio shoot. But when you're looking at increasing or bettering your book, which is your portfolio, you have the right to choose the correct people. So if you are a family photographer, choose someone that's pleasant on the eyes. The family need to be pleasant. It's like anything else. One of my go-to sayings is, we don't cast Rowan Atkinson, Mr. Bean, for Mission Impossible. We use Tom Cruise. And that's the harsh reality. People want to see beautiful people. Okay, so cast correctly and choose your location correctly. And don't throw too much money at it. You'll be surprised what you can achieve with a single strobe and utilizing natural light.
So light is one part of the component, and obviously you have to balance your available and strobe or flash or whatever the thing is on location. How much of each do you use available light as your main light and then fill with flash, or do you go the other way around?
Yeah, it's a great question. I was actually asked this question at my talk a couple of weeks ago at Cameras. And I can tell you my style of photography right now, I'm going to say that 70% is ambient, and I bring in the artificial light as that 30% as a fill. Obviously, time of day, the location predetermines that percentage, and it can start moving towards more artificial. For instance, that weekend we had a really rainy day, and I actually don't even pick up my camera when it's overcast. Okay, I'm that photographer because I'm looking for highlights. So that particular day we ran a 3 to 4 light setup. So it was very much so lent towards artificial light, 80%. But most of the time, I really try and just use the strobe as a very, very subtle fill.
So you don't want to be known as Steve Overcastings.
I do not, Leon, near. I don't want to be known as Steve Overcastings. I like that. Now, yeah, can I use that? I'll use that line.
Of course.
So coming from a glamour background where perhaps the model is in a more sensitive state of mind, when it comes to portraiture, what are the things that photographers can do to make the model feel more at home?
I think, look here, firstly, the guys, and this is the biggest problem with, and let's go back to the technical photographer. This guy, he's brilliant, he knows what he wants, but he's not a people's person. You know, I still deal with photographers. It's that eccentric technical guy who rocks up with his medium format. He doesn't speak to the creative. He's not even speaking to the model. He sits there and he lights up because he just doesn't have that personality. I think today we need to now move ahead, and I'll answer the question now with regards to develop a rapport with your subject. Subject can be a model, it can be a dog, but get to know your subject, okay, before you put her onto the set. And that's really going to help you. Understand the storyboard. Your model needs to know exactly why she's there. Again, I'm talking on the basis that you have contracted someone, whether it be a commercial set or whether it be for your own personal reasons, building your portfolio, and that seems to be happening lately. The guys will ask the models, please come, I've got a beautiful scene and I want to shoot. And they haven't developed a rapport or understood the storyboard or been able to just get to know the person they're shooting prior to picking up the camera. So that's I would definitely focus on that, personalities and understanding people.
Steve, for the type of photographs that you do, when you do your portraits and that, how much of the personality is essential for your final photograph, or is it more a client-orientated, brief-specific kind of a thing? How do you find that balance? Because you say you need to build a rapport. That's trust to get the shot done. Yeah. But how does it translate into the final image?
Again, yeah, great question, Leon. You know, for me at the moment, the last 6-7 months, my social media is very much so built around a specific brand. So the images you are seeing are me testing and keeping the brand alive, saying, look who you can work with, look what type of images you can achieve. And so there, I'm going to tell you now, it's 100% personality, man. It really is. On my set, you can see I'm quite different, and we have fun, and that comes out in the imagery. There's a lot happening behind the scenes. There's absolutely a lot in order to achieve that look. From a commercial point of view, I've done probably 6 or 7 commercial jobs this year that you will never see on my social media ever. And there I've either met with the creative, but I know the creative, or generally I actually bypass the creative and insist I want to meet the client. And so when I say commercial photography, it's not on food or product or anything like that. It's people. But strangely enough, the people have contracted me saying, we want this corporate vibe, but I want you to make me look sexy. And I've actually had some very good-looking ladies coming into studio. So they've seen my work, and I normally think it's a bit taboo, and they're going, well, they're not going to use me, but they want that glamour feel to their corporate shoot.
So you've obviously got a massive amount of personality, and you can see it in all your live streams when you are shooting. But this mentorship program is pretty new, and visiting the Photo and Form, I think you're the only photographer that I know that's ever had their own booth at the Photo and Form.
Yes.
So how do you want to transition now from not just doing what you're doing on a daily basis, but actually going into sort of full-on training? How do you see that happening?
Yeah, I think, as you know, we've had a lot of discussions, and I'm constantly seeking new ideas and advice. But to answer your question, Leslie, I am looking to grow this academy to where we have classrooms, we can facilitate product and large-scale classrooms set on a Wednesday evening, let's say. And the modules have been sort of focusing around into at least beginner photographers, into intermediate photographers, intermediate advanced, etc. So for next year, I'm definitely going to be implementing new modules. And what I'm doing at the moment, like I was saying earlier on, is probably a little bit more for the advanced photographer. I'm mainly dealing with guys who actually know what they want. They just want to learn certain production techniques. Okay, how do I choose the scenes? And then obviously in this new technology being HSS, I know it's been around a while, but it's sort of taken off now. And then we're going to be separating that. And again, that's something that I will be handling. And prior to that, just basically extending the modules.
I think that HSS has obviously grown considerably for consumer.
Yes.
It used to be a commercial photographer's dream, but now consumers with the new technology out there is able to dabble with HSS. But what if I wanted to join your academy tomorrow? What can I look forward to?
I think you can look forward to, obviously, again, the way I'm branding the academy, and I brand the name Steve Castings is different. It's risque. And so there's a large percentage of photographers right now that want to feed off that energy. Okay, so what can this specific photographer look forward to? Exotic locations, using high-end gear. Okay, so they benefit. They can actually arrive at the academy not owning a camera, but having a creative flair. I'll supply them a camera, they use my lights, and there's no additional cost. Maybe that should change, but at the moment, the product is there, and they get to utilize the product. Yes, for the other guys that have been following my Facebook and social media feeds, they look forward to having a tequila and working with beautiful women and lovely music playing. But on a serious note, I do want to transfer my skill set. And my skill set's not just photography. Okay, I always advocate one thing. I'm a better producer than what I am a photographer.
So to perhaps move on to the other side of the lens, when looking at models, there's a lot of sexual misconduct charges brought against photographers now. You have to think of Terry Richardson, for example.
Yeah.
What advice will you be able to give models to avoid the creeps that will try and get you to do a strange shoot? Is there certain steps that they can take to avoid certain people?
Yeah, look, I've got to actually, I saw the other day on Facebook, awesome photographer. He actually made a great post. He said, 20 years ago, we wanted to see a nude girl, we would buy a magazine. Now we just buy a camera and offer shoots. Okay, yeah. So, and it's pertinent to what's happening out there. I think firstly, social media actually protects. It's a small little industry, this guys. And when I say, and I'm not just speaking domestically, I'm talking, nationally now, we all know each other. One model has one uncomfortable situation and everyone knows about it. So with regards to the tip, it's quite easy. Take a look and understand who you're going to be working with. A reputable photographer is going to have a book. Okay. Now, in today's terms, I'm not saying you have to have a website. You don't have to. Guys use social media platforms as their websites, but in essence, generally, you can get to know who you're dealing with in probably 15 seconds on social media. And immediately you know. If you're still a little bit suspect, there are plenty forums out there where you can ask privately. It's very, very important. I've had one or two models just openly ask about a photographer, and I've actually had the photographer say, "Hey, I'm right here, guys." So ask around. So yes, my tip is speak to your friends. Speak to your friends. But I also advocate joining an agency. And I know a lot of models out there say, no, we can freelance and they take money. But guys, I'm an agency owner. I do not own a modeling agency. I have a casting agency that deals in talent and characters. But if you join an agency, a reputable agency, they do look after you. They should actually do your portfolio for you. You might have to pay for it, but it means the agency is employing a reputable photographer. And that's going to eliminate that issue immediately. Now we move over to Facebook, and we've got all these open groups, and we've got all these enthusiasts and upcoming photographers, and they offer TFCD, which is time for CD, which is a free shoot, which is, for me, I know it is needed, but I find it sinful. I believe a photographer, if he takes his craft seriously, he needs to pay for a makeup artist, he needs to pay his model, and this will reflect in his imagery. Okay, so, but if you do get to that stage and now you're concerned, this guy's called you and it's out in the Platteland somewhere and it's a little, yes, go with someone. I also say never do one-on-one shoots, and I will tell the photographer that too, because there's a thing called the disgruntled model as well. Okay, so always have your makeup artist there, always have an assistant there, especially if you're new to each other. Okay, so your model's going to be put at ease, and so will you.
Okay, Steve, I've got a last question for you. We actually at last met face to face at the Photo and Film a little bit earlier this year.
Yeah.
And I saw that you were walking around with a T-shirt with X marks the spot close to the bottom of the rear of your shirt. I would imagine that you've had some luck at playtime with Fuji. Do you maybe want to just tell us about how you found the system and how that works in your workflow?
Yeah, I think, firstly I need to chat about this. I'm a person that deals with people before the product. And I found that Esley and the company Fujifilm South Africa have put together a collective, maybe not a collective, a family. And so leading up to it, my experience has been brilliant. And I also believe in sustainable relationships. And I believe for 2018 and 2019 moving forward, we've got some big things planned with myself and Fujifilm. The unit itself is a dream, and no one's paying me to say this. I absolutely enjoy the unit. I think I can get to know it a bit more, okay? And that's definitely on the cards, where they're going to be educating me as a photographer, and in return, I can educate other photographers on the system. But the journey thus far has been absolutely brilliant for me. It really has. But it goes back down to the community. Meeting guys like yourself. It becomes a family full of banter, I see. We're part of this WhatsApp group, and I can sit and I chuckle. I chuckle at the banter. But again, it's very family orientated. You've got like the black sheep like me, Uncle Bob that possibly went to jail. That's me, that guy. So we're going to keep him on the side. It's an analogy. So, but then we've got brilliant guys like you, Leon. So, I've had a lot of chats with you, and your technical expertise is brilliant. I'm working close with Tim Moolman, and so all these relationships forged and being forged is all through one community, and that's the Fujifilm community.
Steve, you travel around South Africa teaching workshops. Where can people find out where you will be visiting shortly?
I drive. Obviously, I'm driving through social media at the moment. I do place upcoming events on the website, but at the moment, I find we're in this position now where We are taking social media platforms, driving the traffic through to a more informed site, which is the website. But it's constantly, I actually find that people get all their information on social media.
Okay.
So I generally, a month before, I do have a workshop planned in Paarl, Cape Town, coming up soon. Also have there's talk for Bloemfontein. This is all derived from the Photo and Film Expo, where I've got different photography clubs that have said, please come down. So we're definitely planning. Our next trip will be Cape Town.
So where can we find you on social media?
You can find me on Steve Castings Photography. You can also find me Steve Castings Academy and my timeline Steve Castings.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us in studio. We appreciate your time, and it was great chatting to you about Glamour and your one-on-one mentorship program.
Thank you very much, guys.